You can pick all you want, but, the universe will dictate when something is to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from Labor Day, it went to October. From October, it went to Halloween. From Halloween, the time went by, and I went over draft, over rewrite, finding typos, and I had a staff of assistants who was lovely and served me very well, and they're very devoted to me, and a professional secretary. And then one day I was like, if this damn thing if this thing isn't done, it's going to kill me.
Right.
So I got a phone call one day. I was thinking about it. And Thursday, before I got a phone call on a Monday. The Thursday before this phone call was the United States Marine Corps birthday.
Right.
Now, Friday, following this day, the second day after, what was Veterans Day of November of 2011.
Okay.
Now, Monday, on November 14th, I received a phone call from my publisher, iUniverse.com, out in Indiana, and they said, Lee, glad to tell you the book is live. I said, what? I don't know anything about publishing. This is all new to me. I have no idea. I finished my job on Labor Day. I finished my job on September 3rd. Well, long story short, they said the book is live. It's for sale. I said, what does that mean? They said, Lee, it means this is the book's birthday. I said, oh, okay. So I hung up the phone and looked at my calendar, and I realized the day was November 14th.
Oh, yeah?
Well, November 14th, my father would have been 91 years old.
Is that right?
That is right. You can't make this stuff up.
No. How about that?
No, you can't.
The strength of the fiction.
Yes, it is. So the day the book went live was actually my father's own birthday.
How about that?
And from that day forward, I said, hey, it's out of my hands. It's got a life of its own.
What a commendation for your dad, though.
What's that?
I said, what a commendation for your dad.
Yeah.
Well, I think he made it happen because I was aiming for
I'm sure he did.
He made it happen. It's his way of flexing his military muscles, saying, I'm still in charge, little girl.
Huh. There's one other thing about your dad's take on being in boot camp and his trip down there too was he was not a man who was swayed by prejudice. He was
oh God no. He you got to understand, my father grew up without a father. He grew up in the middle of the city with every color in the rainbow. He was a sports player.
Exactly. So he knew all the guys in his neighborhoods, and there were white guys, black guys, Spanish guys, every kind of guys. And when
there weren't a lot of Spanish back then, but there were a lot of Germans and Irish and whatever. To be honest with you.
Okay.
But my dad was from Newark, the Vailsburg section of Newark near Deer Neck.
Yeah, I guess the thing that got me was it was really good to read because you sense from some folks that recall stories of the war how there were those that accepted the segregation, and your dad rejected it utterly.
Oh, he was pissed off. He was very annoyed by it. He was offended by it deeply.
Yeah, I thought that was remarkable because there's just so much you hear from different people about, oh yeah, well that's just the way it is, and your dad did not accept that, and I admired that.
Well, thank you, because I was raised in a very multicultural, diverse atmosphere, being where I am, close to the city. Right. And I will remark also, last year before my dad passed away was the tsunami that resulted in hitting Japan.
Oh yeah.
And it was kind of a blind side to me as I watched my father. I observed him seeing these events on television. He made me go out and get every newspaper, and he was just intrigued. And I said, "What is it, Dad?" He said, "Don't you understand the place where that tidal wave hit? It was a place where the elderly were really living in retirement villages." Mm-hmm. He says, "Don't you get it? The Japanese soldiers who survived World War II,
right.
Most of them who did retire and live on the island of Japan lived in that vicinity." And he says, all I could do, because my father was a praying man, he said he would pray. He says, I've been praying for them. He says, because Jesus Christ, after going through World War II, if they made it home to Japan, the way I made it home to New Jersey, for them to have this happen,
really,
God help them.
Wow. Yeah.
And he was just a very large, broad-minded soul with a huge heart. Mm-hmm. And he could be tough as nails, and he was tough on me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
he had this other side of him that understood the horrors of war, and it did extend also to the enemy, which he did not consider the enemy in the end, but simply men who were doing the right thing as far as they knew, serving their country.
Hmm. Yeah.
And when that tsunami hit in Japan, he was visibly upset. He
Wow.
said to go through all that.
Right. Yeah. To just get washed away in a tidal wave. Terrible.
And there was one particular story where there was a young girl, well, not a young girl, but a middle-aged girl, whose father had been an elderly man who was swept away, and she ran home from work and was in the driveway, ran up to the second story, and that she couldn't make it to her house. And I remember this reading about this in Japan, in
Hmm.
this community, and saw her father across the way on the balcony on the second story, and had to be about my father's age.
Right.
And sat there in horror, and she was in her 40s, and sat there in horror as the tsunami hit, but he held on.
Wow.
And I remember reading that, and my father said, "Read this story," and it was in one of the newspapers. And he
Hmm.
looked at me. He said that was you and I.
Hmm.
And
I
my
thought.
father had that broadness of mind to understand the capacity of suffering and also healing in human life.
Wow.
And he was an extraordinary man.
Hankel's, yeah, he was. He really was something else. I'll tell you. I'm looking. I tell you what. I cannot wait for you to publish these next two novels. I mean, do you have any idea? I mean, look, let's just play Fantasy Island for a second here. If the money's came in your door tomorrow, how long would it take for you to actually get the next book out?
About 9 weeks. Well, I got to sit on the beach. Wait a minute. What month is this? How warm is it? How cold is it? I can have them done by the end of July.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. Because you got me hooked, see? See, I want to have you back. I want to talk about the next one, too. I'm motivated, you know.
Well, see, you might be motivated, but this is my destiny.
Right. I understand. Yeah, absolutely.
And I like that you're motivated. I like people motivated on behalf of my destiny. I appreciate that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Now, I noticed in your book that the photographs included, and there's some great shots in here. There's pictures of your dad goofing around with, I guess, his brothers or friends, but I don't know who anybody is. Were the names?
Okay. You see the one?
Sure.
You see the one where he's punching?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a picture called The Punch.
Okay.
That's my dad's little brother.
Oh, is that
You
right?
have to understand, my grandpa was a fighter. He was a professional boxer.
Yeah, I caught that.
And he boxed out of a place called Stillerman's Gym.
Okay.
Now, back in the early 1900s, Stillerman's Gym was paved over, and they put a building on top of it. You know what building is on top of it today?
What's that?
Madison Square Garden.
Oh, is that right?
That is right.
Wow.
And my grandfather was a middleweight champion, and he was undefeated, and he fought under the name of Harry Seymour. That was his stage name. And he was tough. And that this was a legacy. So my dad's now, has no father. He's 6 years old. His dad taught him the box.
Oh.
And his little brother, my Uncle Fred, also was in the Army. He actually served under Patton. He was a tough guy, too. He's got great military history as well.
Sure.
My Uncle Fred, who's also he predeceased my father. And they used to joke around and punch each other. Because whenever my aunts would bring home a boyfriend, they'd look at each other, and my Uncle Fred, the younger brother, would look at my dad and say, "You think you can beat him up, Henry?" And he'd look at him and he'd say, "Yeah, I can beat him up." He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay." Because they always size up, the sisters' boyfriends when they came home. So they used to joke about punching each other because they used to really punch each other because they would go to the gym, the YMCA, and box. And then one day my father hit my uncle in the arm so hard he couldn't move his arm. And then he panicked. So then he put this horse liniment on it. And then he couldn't move his arm. And then the arm started to turn purple. And then they had to bring my Uncle Fred to the hospital. And he had blood poisoning.
Oh, jeez.
So this all happened when they were like 14 and 15 years old. So from that day on, they decided they were going to fake and stage the punches.
Wow. Okay.
So until my father died until my Uncle Fred died at age 88, and my dad was 89, I have pictures of them in their 80s throwing the punch, and I have pictures of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
But that was the first picture of the punch
The punch.
And my cousin, the punch. And every time we get together, because we're a very tight knit family, for Thanksgiving, for Easter, for Hanukkah, because we're half Jewish and half Catholic, we celebrated everything. Lots of good food.
Cool.
They were always throwing punches. So my cousins and I are looking at will the two of them ever stop this stupid punch stuff? Take a picture. Take a picture.
Right.
So I have a ton of pictures of my father and my uncle staging these punches. But that was the first punch picture.
How about that? Now there's a picture towards the back on page 174, and is that your mom and your dad holding you?
Let me see. No, the only picture of me is on the back cover, and that's a picture of my father and I after we cut the lawn.
Oh, is that right?
That is true.
Okay.
All right, 174. Oh, that's my dad and my mom. That is my brother who passed away, my brother Hank. That is his youngest boy. That's baby Gregory.
Is that right?
Yes, and they're from New Mexico.
He's a beautiful baby.
Oh, he's a pain in the ass today, but he was a beautiful little boy.
Well, the only thing that I had a hard time figuring out was who was who in those pictures. I mean, I could tell your dad, that was obvious, and your mom. But some of the other pictures, I couldn't tell who he was with. Well,
I want to point out one special picture, just because I'm obnoxious. Can I do that?
Yeah, sure. We're coming up at the end. It's actually we're the last 3 minutes.
Okay, Okay, but I want to show you one picture. Page 20, and there's a picture of my dad.
Right.
On page 20, in his uniform, and that's his sister, my Aunt Evelyn.
Oh, okay.
And the little kid in front of there is my cousin Virginia.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's my cousin Virginia.
When was this picture taken? It looks like it was like
he came home from boot. It was after he come home from the war. His leave.
Oh, okay. So it was like 45.
So this has to be 1945. Yes.
Okay. Great.
And to this day, Virginia is really, really skinny.
Is that right?
I put this picture in the book because it's the only fat picture there is of her.
You just had to do it, didn't you?
I had to.
Well, Lee, look, I got to tell you, I have had a great time tonight having you on the show. I just really...
I appreciate you having me.
No, really. Just lifted my spirits. And I want to remind everybody again, you want to get yourself a copy of Never Anticipate the Command by Lee Summers. Now, Lee, they can get this at Amazon.com. They can order it right, and they can have it shipped right to their home.
Yes, they can.
And if you must get it on Kindle books, you can do that as well. But if you get the hard copy, the money's going to go to who again?
At the end of the year, it goes to a variety of 4 different Wounded Warrior chapters of charities.
Okay. Great.
And if someone, and I'd like to put it out there, if you order the book, of course can't autograph or insignia any book, but if you inbox me and give me your address, I'll be more than happy to write a dedication to you, and you can tape it or stick it on. I'll get a sticky pad, and I'll be more than happy to personally, sign it for you if that means anything to you, so you can stick it in the book.
And they can find you on Facebook too.
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, I want to take a moment here to thank everybody who joined in with us tonight. And remind everybody that we'll be back next week with Wild Bill for America. And that'll be next Friday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 1 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And that's exclusively here on North Star Radio. And you all have yourselves a great night now, and we'll see you again soon. God bless you.